Yeah. All right. Hey, folks. What's up? So, Darren McDonald back. I know you're all expecting an awesome skiing social network site. However, that's been sidelined. So the work I did researching that, I put it away thanks to Gavin, who's allowing me to work on my project, much like Matt is with Layers. So because of Spark and because of the need, I guess, to spend more time figuring out what this product could look like, I've asked Gavin to give me some time to take the concepts we're learning in class and apply it to this project. And he said because it's around relational data, it should work fine. So I'm cool with that, and I thank him for that. So I should be focused more on my product and my pitch. So for those of you that don't know, I actually studied UI a long time ago, probably well over 10 years ago. So I went back to some of my old books like Steve Krug's Don't Make Me Think and Jakob Nielsen and Don Norman's books around web usability and the design of everyday things, just to try and figure out, okay, how to get my head back in the design space. And then I went to some of the old tools, and I'm glad Matt brought this one up because that's probably the best one to use. It's the easiest for sure. And so I started whiteboarding in the basement a little bit this week. The other thing, those of you that know, I went on a retreat with one of my co-founders last week, and we actually landed on a tagline of from presence to performance. Took us a long time to get there for those 4 little words. But really what it means is when we have bums in seats, we can actually work on employee performance. Because if people aren't at work, there's no sense trying to do employee development and get them engaged with the workplace. So it's really about presenteeism. And that's what uptime management hopefully will be about when it's up and ready. So let's see if this is going to work. It might be too far away. So for wireframing, I looked at some of the old tools I'm familiar with, like Balsamiq and Webflow, and I looked at Adobe Reflow that Colin introduced us to, as well as mockups, which is in some of the course notes. Ultimately, I want to try something new, so I landed on maybe something Edge Reflow. It's a little buggy, but it's pretty cool. I didn't use the export function of the HTML or CSS, and you'll see that when you look at what my wireframe looks like to what I actually coded up this morning. They're a little bit different visually. That'll change hopefully this week. So from here, from my whiteboard, I went to this with my star employee, Brian Best, as part of my network. So on the top, we have basically our bank of days available. So vacation days that are used, personal days, family medical leave, sick days, and disability days. And I have to come up with some fancy algorithm in the near future to really start to look at calculating the individual's uptime, if you will. So if I paid you to be here this year, that would represent 100%. And as you start to miss time, that starts to affect your time at work. You can look and aggregate that to the entire team that you work with, as well as the entire company. So you can see Brian needs some help and some coaching. So down here, he can schedule an appointment with his direct manager. But what this is allowing us to do is get an idea of the time people are at work and when it is that they're missing. I heard today on the way out, before Brian's interview on CBC, there was some information around Black Friday. And a lot of people take a sick day to do shopping instead of actually scheduling a vacation day or whatever, which really goes to that number of affecting productivity in Canada. And we're one of the worst countries in the world with respect to that. So needs some work. So from this, I tried to code. And this is what it'll look like using Bootstrap, HTML and CSS. It is web responsive, so I can shrink this down. I'll get a 2x2 with these graphs, and my work schedule will actually compress. So it does work functionally. Now I just have to add in a little bit more functionality to get it to look like this beautiful masterpiece over here. And that's about it. From here, I'm taking, I wanted to do 2 wireframes, one from this is the employees, what they would see, and there'd also be a manager version where they would basically see icons of each one of their team members with probably their score. and it would be represented as green, orange, or yellow, and red to indicate kind of where they are on the continuum. Once we figure out what that algorithm looks like, to see what is the worst case of absenteeism in the country, and then what best case we know is being present 100% or more, I guess. So from here, I'm taking it back to my team for some input, and really we want to finish the 2 wireframes to see what they're going to look like before we start taking them to customers and getting their feedback. We do most of those data points that were on the original one are from conversation I've had with frontline supervisors and HR directors. So that's where we got the information to start to populate this. And that's it.
I was noticing a lot of whole numbers there. Does it allow for taking half days into consideration?
Sure.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, everything will be in decimal form.
Okay.
Yeah.
So to be like
8 and a quarter day, whatever, 7 points. Like most organizations I work at, if they have a modified day, it's like, so you work 7.75 days for a week.
So you'd have like, so for somebody who say someone who's known for like taking the last 2 hours off because they faked a headache or something. Yeah. So it'd be like 0.25 for say each. And
I don't really want to turn into a tracking. There's a lot of tracking tools out there. It's more about if the employee sees this, like I'm hoping if Brian saw that and said, damn, my team is here more than I am.
Yep.
And I may be in line where the company is, but his peers are probably going to pick up on that.
Yep.
So it'll take a lot of the management maybe off of the manager's shoulders, because speaking with them, a lot of them spend the majority of their time with a few employees.
Yep.
If they have a team of 15, 2 or 3 people might be dictating 70 to 80% of their time.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. No, an actual like a self-evaluation, it's proven tends to be more useful and more effective than actually like having it like you're doing this.
A conflict too.
An example is for speeding. Spot checks are not nearly as effective for preventing speeding in a general level than having a sign up telling you your speed limit as you're driving by. Research has proven that's much more effective at cutting down on speeding than actual spot checks.
You self-regulate.
So yeah, and it goes back to a mental thing of self-regulation. So even having the customer being able to see that they're missing this particular time could cause them to kind of turn their habits around before it becomes a problem. But what I'm wondering is, so I can see from an employer's standpoint, they'll be able to go in and check all of this, and they're obviously the ones who are entering this person's sick days and whatnot.
Yeah.
But for the actual employee themselves to go in and view it, other than actually going in to see their sick days, is there any other functionality that?
No, they can see kind of what they have left. Yeah. Like if you're not tracking that, most times that's tracked in like an Excel document. Or whatever, right?
And I'm just wondering, like, if something else was built into it that would have them reviewing this like every day, every other day, like, oh look, I missed last week, but I've been putting in my hours on this program this week, and I can see my uptime is actually going up now.
Mm-hmm. Well, one of the things we didn't want to turn it into right away, because ideally it's going to be an entire management suite, but we didn't want to add too much to what already exists out there.
Yeah.
So, if it can integrate with calendars, if it can integrate with a lot of things that people use in their daily.
I do. I like it. My only real question is what's driving the employees to check it.
Yeah, and there may not be. They may not, we might find out that they'll never use this.
Yeah.
But the managers will.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, Matt.
I think you could do some cool stuff with seeing how like Brian's attendance impacts his peers. Like you could see like probably if Brian doesn't show up to work, the rest of his team, and if you could show Brian how much he means to his team.
Right. Yeah.
That would probably bring him in more often too.
I think it would actually work out well if you had like a per project timeline as well, because what Matt was saying, like when I'm gone, it would be interesting to see like how that affected the project.
The whole performance of the project. Yeah.
Yeah, that starts to get kind of hairy too, because
Very
it goes into
granular.
how you're going to measure the performance, right? Are you measuring it in the amount of code output? Are you measuring it in objectives completed? Are you measuring it in the amount of time people are spending on it, right? That's
And let me
just
put
my
a little
only concern
context to
with that.
this too. We're starting, I think, in 100-person nursing homes as our test bed to begin. So I don't know how this is going to translate into a project environment where this is their daily work that they're doing. So anyway, it's going to get interesting as we start to talk to real users.
We have a friend who would be able to help with that algorithm.
Okay,
He's a
actuarial.
PhD mathematician and is obsessed with that sort of thing. So he would be able to figure out those numbers. And
Awesome. Yeah, I have two friends that are actuaries that actually set rates for pay, for compensation, for stuff like that. I was going to dig into them too, but I'll take any
Like-
expert math advice. Would be awesome.
Yep, like this is huge for that time when it's time to give your employees a raise or something, right? You take them in and you say, well, your performance is good, but this is what it's showing on your uptime management. Like this is why we're justifying giving you this much over,
Or maybe no increment.
yeah,
Right. And that's the other thing we talked about was compensation. There's a lot of expectation of I put in my time, I expect to get this raise every year.
Mhm.
Right. If you're in that type of work environment, and
Yeah.
this could go to pay for performance. So maybe you get 85% of your salary, and then that 15% is made up on how present you were at work. You could get creative with it. It depends on the organization, how proactive they use it. But when the Nova Scotia government came out like a day after I presented the numbers, around 9%, and said that theirs was actually 12%. So there's an extra, or 12 days. So there's an extra 3 days that Nova Scotia civil servants are not at work compared to the rest of the country. So,
one last question, I promise.
shoot. Anyone else?
Does this take into account people working from home, or does it have to
Yeah.
be in office?
No, it'll take into account people working wherever.
How are you planning on measuring the people working from home, preventing them from
We're not going to track
unlocking
them.
the data?
So we're not going to track them.
So it's going to be on the employer.
Well, it's on your output.
Yeah.
If you get your work done in 2 hours, who cares?
Yeah.
I don't. Here,
Isn't that against the
only if you pay for hourly work. That's not my philosophy. I think hourly work is horrible.
Okay.
It doesn't reflect actual productivity. If I get 2 people in a room and here's the project, and based on our experience, we estimate it's going to take 8 hours to complete it. Someone takes 4, the other person takes 12. It doesn't really matter. That person's going to work more. They're not going to get paid anymore at the end of the day. And this person, well, maybe they have some time to do some research, do whatever.
Yeah, in that environment, yeah, I could definitely see what you're saying. But you're planning on testing this in a nursing home where 8 hours is 8
Yeah,
hours.
exactly.
There, it's
Yep.
not. It's never going to be. I got the job done in 4 hours time.
Yeah. And it'll vary because every workplace we go in is going to be totally different. So we may have to look at being able to customize this based on salaried environments versus hourly versus people that get paid piecework.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Like it looks like you put a lot of time into it, even since like the pitch, right?
well, it's changed a lot since the pitch. That weekend was really good because we got to thrash a little bit. But there's still a lot of assumptions that got to be tested. So we're actually using the Lean Launch Lab to document our business model canvas. And we plan on updating that every week so we can look at how it's changed week over week. Because we're going to test at least one hypothesis every week, probably starting when we get in front of customers, which may not be until the new year with the holidays coming, but we'll see. There's a couple people that are anxious to get on board. So.
Awesome. That's
Yeah.
always a good, promising first step.
So sad I wasn't here on Friday. Whatever. It was awesome to be at the hackathon. But it took us away from here. Mad, and I wasn't really mad at all last week. Not too much anyway. I was really glad to partake in the hackathon. Our team was pretty cool. Emily and I got to work with an MBA student from CBU from China. So we got to spend quite a bit of time with her. And then our foreign team was actually from the United Arab Emirates, which was an interesting culture to work with collaboratively. I'll just leave it at that. But other than that, it was a good week. Global entrepreneurship, I think, was well represented in Nova Scotia, and yeah, it's fun.
All right. Well, thanks, Darren.
Thanks.
If I had that in university,